Isn't it odd that a character that gets a divide audience when it comes to liking or hating a character that instantly can make a show really unpleasant to sit through, even with small appearances? I can say that Cheese is honestly one of those characters that, looking at him in the past, I honestly found him tolerable in the first episode, but later on he just becomes worse and worse. But just to get this out of the way, if any of you guys are requesting me to do a review involving Cheese when it comes to him becoming the main character, I'm just gonna say, no, I'm not going to do any of those reviews. Seriously, I was planning to do a review on the Big Cheese episode as part of Cartoon Crisis, but compared to what I've seen other episodes being as worse than that episode, I don't want to go through so much stress into making those episodes, I've decided to review this episode instead as part of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends Week. This episode begins with Max sleeping in bed, and then when he wakes up, he sees Cheese in front of him, which completely scares the heck out of him. And that's how we reached into the Foster's residence, where we see Blue and Frankie arguing with each other, like they usually do whenever they're on screen together. And when they encounter Cheese, we get to see that Cheese isn't really the type of imaginary friend, and the fact that he is just really handicapped, and I mean extremely handicapped when it comes to him begging for drinks and stuff like that, because if he doesn't get what he wants, he instantly screams. And whether he does something for his own benefits, and some characters completely prevent him from doing that, he instantly screams. And that's basically what this entire episode is about, is the fact that Mac thinks that Cheese is also an imaginary friend that he created, despite the fact that he has no evidence as of now, and he decides to take Cheese with him to do some of the activities that him and Blue usually do during their spare time. For me personally, people completely found this episode really entertaining, while other people found the late episodes involving Cheese really bad. I can honestly see why people are coming from, because I need to get this out of the way. People are mostly different from everyone else when it comes to their hobbies and what they do for a living. But when it comes to characters like Cheese, who are completely different from everyone else when it comes to their acting, their behavior and stuff like that, you can mostly, the people mainly autism like me can mostly relate to Cheese in this episode. But for me personally, I don't relate to Cheese because I don't have any of those qualities and flaws that Cheese has to offer, if he does have qualities when it comes to his haters. The comedy that we get from Cheese is really missed. Like, nearly every bit of his jokes, what minus him playing with the horsey in front of Mac and Blue, was literally the only joke I actually found him hilarious. But everything when it comes to his jokes, especially the bit where Mac and Blue is just trying to pull the carts that they made from the hill slowly, and he cheers, and then when they let go, he instantly screams. I did play that mini game before, but looking at it now, and the fact that Cheese has some serious haters, it really makes this entire episode honestly uncomfortable and mostly pointless. But in all honesty, if this is literally the only episode we get to see Cheese and not in his future appearances, then I honestly think that this episode would have been a little bit more tolerable, to say the least. Here's the thing, when we see the scenes of the other characters rejecting Cheese, or the fact that he's unknowing the other characters, and we get another scene involving, or a montage of Blue just doing some tricks in order to have Cheese be away from his life. It's basically, they use these types of ideas in later episodes when it comes to the characters doing a news interview broadcast, and Cheese is the one completely ruining everything, and Cheese ends up winning at the end. Compared to what Cheese does in this episode, and the fact that he's an imaginary friend and not human, I honestly think that his appearance in this episode and the fact that his motivations is just basically what a character who has autism or have a huge disability disorder would usually have. But when we look at later episodes, I can really tell you for a fact that his appearances in the later episodes honestly makes this episode instantly forgettable for how he's portrayed. Here is some of the facts onto why I think that Cheese doesn't deserve episode from his first appearance. 1, Mac is still confused that he actually made him as another imaginary friend, and he takes him along with doing the other activities. And then when he leaves for the majority of this episode, after they're back at Foster's, and when Blue has to watch him over, we get to see that Cheese isn't really capable to do any of the stuff that the other characters are doing. So when you completely see a character like Cheese who have this many disabilities, and the fact that he just can't be able to handle most of those qualities from the other characters, it really makes his presence in this episode instantly understandable, despite the fact that he can be annoying. Like I said, he can be annoying in this episode, but in the later episodes, not so much. What I mean by that is, he doesn't deserve to be tolerated in the later episodes. Getting to Blue in this episode, since that this is the second season where his flannelization was slowly but surely getting worse, he's mostly tolerable in this. I mean, he just wants to hang out with Mac and do some activities like making the gold card and stuff like that. Both Cheese getting away, it just hasn't been the same. And then when he completely throws him away by doing so many other stunts, and the fact that he completely locks him inside of a closet in order to stay away from him, I honestly don't blame him. It's not that Cheese is being intentionally bad for the sake of driving the other characters into insanity in later episodes. The difference in this episode is the fact that the other characters just don't understand who Cheese is and how he feels whenever he's doing any of this kind of stuff. Because when we completely see that Cheese managed to get out of the bathroom, yes, I am fully aware that that's actually a bathroom, not a closet, my bad. We get to see Blue just trying to find Cheese all over the apartment, and we get to see a different style of animation of Cheese from Blue's fantasy, well, not really fantasy, but imagination of what happens to Cheese. We get to see Cheese getting physically harmed because he has a disability that he won't be able to handle on his own. And this is where the highlight of this episode really makes this episode really good when it comes to Cheese. Granted, his popularity was really over the top when it comes to Cartoon Network back in the 2000s, but that's for another time, because as far as I'm concerned, for how this character became somewhat of a mascot in Cartoon Network in the 2000s is still beyond me. Anyway, I can tell that for what they're trying to do involving Blue in this situation is the fact that he actually needs to learn that the disabilities that Cheese has, and the fact that he has to take care of him because he thinks he's his brother, mainly from Mac, because from Mac's perspective, he actually made those two imaginary friends, even if in reality he only made one of them. You can actually tell that Cheese is instantly not the type of person to handle any of that kind of stuff. Granted, it doesn't completely excuse for everything he does in later episodes, but for this episode alone, you can really tell that he really is so much of a handicapped person that he just can't be able to control on his own. And then when he saw a knife, which this show is for kids, so there's no violence, bloody violence whatsoever, he instantly screams, and he's completely paranoid that Cheese is completely gone. But unfortunately, with some luck, Cheese was actually with Frankie the entire time. How Frankie managed to unlock everything that Blue did by throwing Cheese into the bathroom is beyond me, but whatever. And he makes a speech on the fact that he will accept him as his brother. And if the episode actually ended off with that, with Cheese being Blue's brother, I can tell that the entire series afterwards will probably have a different alternative route. But then we get Louise, who is actually the true creator of Cheese. And it's actually revealed that Cheese has a habit of leaving the apartment that he is a part with Louise. And this completely made Blue completely okay, despite the fact that he is completely in disbelief that it was actually a different creator who created Cheese. And the episode ends with that. In all honesty, this episode alone, I have mixed opinions when it comes to the debate on if Cheese is a good character or a bad character. I can say that in this episode, with his first appearance, he was tolerable, but later on, not so much. There was a reason onto why I'm not going to be reviewing any episode involving Cheese in the future, and you'll probably understand why, because what I've just stated in this review is the fact that Cheese's motivations in this episode is mostly in his disorder of disabilities, while later on, I'm not going to discuss what he does later on, because as far as I'm concerned, for anyone who actually likes Cheese, I don't want to upset them. Like the last episode, this isn't one of my favorite episodes, but I can say that it's underrated, but as for later episodes, it's overrated, if you know what I mean. If anyone's going to discuss what I feel about Cheese in the other episodes, you can comment it down below and I'll discuss about it, because I still have zero plans on making reviews of those episodes, whether if you agree with me or not. I give this episode a 6.5 out of 10.
Let's get this started again. Me and my whole crew, we live with no rules. Let's get this started again. So if you feel like me too, there's only one thing to do. Let's go. Pay down, call the taxi cab. Got a case in the fridge and a bottle at the crib. Let's all get twisted, double fisting, drink up, no resisting. Let's get this started again. Let's get this started again. Let's